I have to admit that I've been quite lucky over the last couple of years. Sim racing and the Assetto Corsa modding scene in particular have provided opportunities to virtually drive many of the race cars that I worshipped as a kid. Be it the cars of the Group C era, V10 F1 legends, or, as in today's case, Porsche's controversial but stunning 911 GT1. Hello fellow sim racers. Today I'm taking a look at a car that I was absolutely obsessed with as a teenager. United Racing Design have just released their version of the 911 GT1 for Assetto Corsa, which joins the previously available Mercedes CLK-GT1. And it makes replicating the sharp end of the mid to late 1990s endurance racing scene just that little bit easier. In theory, I shouldn't have been a fan of the Porsche, since it rather rained on the parade of my beloved McLaren and their F1 GTR, but at the time I was swept away by the performance and even more so by the looks. In model making circles, there's a type of person called a rivet counter. They have a great eye for minor details, and they're excellent at picking out the tiny differences between a model and the thing that it's supposed to represent. Now, I'm not one of those people. To me, this looks spot on, which is to say that it looks like a handful of Porsche parts were bolted onto a chassis, and then all of the gaps were filled in by aerodynamicists. And that's exactly what I'm looking for here. The URD car represents the midpoint of the GT1's development, the 1997 GT1 Evo. This takes a few of the styling cues from the at-time unreleased Porsche 996, along with a small number of aero tweaks which make the car look a little bit more aggressive and race car-like, which I think is appropriate given the backstory of the GT1 project. As I'm sure you all know, the 911 GT1 was, to put it as charitably as possible, a homologation special. Described by some at the time as a Porsche 962 with a 911 body kit, the car very much changed the face of top-flight GT racing at the time. And that link to Porsche's long-running Group C heritage is certainly not too far from the mark. The car was developed using experience gained with a 94 Le Mans winning Dower 962, and aside from the 911 front-end body shell, the rest of the car has a lot more in common with a sports prototype than a road car. The engine, for example, owes a lot to the later water-cooled units running the 962C, as does the mid-engine layout, designed to make use of extensive underfloor aerodynamics. A first for a 911. And of course the key factor, shared between the lineage of all of these cars, Norbert Singer. So if I had to summarise how the URD version of the 911 GT1 drives, the first point of comparison would be one of the later, more sophisticated Group C era cars. Which means it is a little ungainly in the slow speed stuff, but once the aero really gets going, it's a beast. With a bucket load of power on tap, short gearing and some eyebrow-raising turbo lag, this is a car that will bite you, and a delicate right foot is, of course, all but essential. But on the plus side, it does have ABS. The default setup's actually very drivable, though perhaps it could be a little bit safer for newbies. If you're struggling, I'd suggest lowering the diff power setting a little bit to tame the on-power oversteer, and perhaps adding a little bit of wing, which can induce some turn-in understeer, which is definitely much safer, albeit not as fast. Depending on which source you read, either 20 or 21 of the 1997 model were produced for the road, before the rules for the 1998 season all but eliminated the need for road-going versions. By that time, the pretense of GT1 as a road car-based formula had been dropped, and thus the 1998 cars looked, behaved, and were classified as what they were all along: prototypes. For me, the URD offering captures the look and the feel of the 911 GT1 admirably, and it passes that all-important plausibility test. That is to say, it drives like I would expect such a car to drive. The sound, on the other hand, doesn't really do it for me, and this has been an area where URD have perhaps not been as consistent as other sources in the past. The car sounds a little bit lifeless, and the turbo chirps are pretty distracting, doubly so when you're watching from the replay cameras. That all being said, it's far from problematic, and I've no doubt there'll be a third-party sound pack out in the wild before too long. So that just about wraps things up here. If you're interested in purchasing the United Racing Design Porsche GT1, then I've included a link in the video description. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, it would be great if you could hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you can see more content like this in the future. So all that's left to say is goodbye, thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.